everybody, thanks for tuning in. I know it's been a while since I've done a video. I've been recovering from a cough that I had before I got my wisdom teeth pulled, then I had my wisdom teeth pulled, and it's been about 3 weeks since that happened. So here I am, finally feeling better. I still have holes in my mouth, but I can talk and I'm good. So yeah, anyway, I am here to share my experience about recruitment and that whole process and give you my thoughts and honest opinions and advice and tips and all that fun stuff. So I'm super excited to talk about it. To be totally honest, I really never thought that I would talk about this. I never ever saw myself as a sorority girl. And actually I was totally against the whole thing. Not condemning about it to people that want to do it, but I was like, I'm never doing that. People that want to do it, great, but like that's not me. And so well, here I am. So it's been a journey, and a lot of you know my journey that are really close with me, but with my anxiety and depression, I've talked about that on the blog before, but it's been a really crazy 2 years since I moved here, and I am finally settled and in a place that I am so excited to call home, and the Lord has just beautifully woven my story, and so I'm so encouraged by that. And so I wanted to just give my tips and advice, tell you why I decided to go through recruitment and why I'm so glad that I did, and so excited for the process that's ahead. So with that being said, I'm going to get started. I have some notes because I wanted to really be able to say what I wanted to say in a good way. So the reason that I decided to go through recruitment is ever since I moved here, I had been praying that the Lord would just provide me with a group of friends that would just be my rock. And I have awesome girlfriends that I met last year, and I'm so grateful for them. But I also want even more friends. I'm all about making relationships and building relationships, and so they are incredible. I live with them. I love them to pieces, but I also wanted to get involved in other things. And so I really didn't think that a sorority would be the place for me, but I really wanted solid people that were committed to living life the way I'm committed to living life and really passionate about the way I am. And so that's the kind of group that I wanted to dive into. And originally I didn't think that that would be in a sorority, but my mom really challenged me and encouraged me to give it a shot and try to find really solid girls in necessarily a community that can have a lot of stereotypes attached with it. And growing up, I had a lot of stereotypes attached to the sorority life. And when I got here, I realized that that's not all true. And so I just urge anyone going into college or maybe considering the process, the stereotypes that you hear aren't all true, at least at Texas A&M. And I know that there are not always the people with the strongest morals or different types of opinions than you. And so there definitely are those people, but there are also the people that have really strong morals and really feel passionate about certain areas. And so, but those people are everywhere. And so that's what I've realized. Like, you can find them in any group. And so why in the world would I only say that I could find those groups here and not in a sorority? And so I'm super grateful that my mom encouraged me to do it, and that the Lord began to like soften my heart about the whole process, because I was then able to be able to go through it. And so going into it, I was looking at the schedule, and I'm gonna warn you, if you're an introverted extrovert like I am, the process is going to exhaust you. You're probably gonna cry from just sheer exhaustion about anything. Oops. And I didn't think that that would be the case, but it was. So my tips of advice going into every house is let down your walls of what you think each house might have, what stereotypes they might have. I know that's really hard to do, especially if you've been at the university for a year or 2 or 3 years. But try to let the stereotypes go, because you can't really see people for who they are if you have this wall up of what you think they are the entire time you're talking to them. And so my mom is a tried out legacy here at A&M, and so going into the process, I was like, I would love to be a tried out and follow in my mom's footsteps, but if that's not where I end up, then that's not where I end up. And so I went in very open. In the first 2 days, you go and visit every house here at A&M. We have 12 main sororities that go through recruitment. I think there are 14 total, but 12 through the actual typical recruitment week. So you go to 6 one day and 6 the next. And so when I say that you walk into a house and you can tell within a couple minutes whether you're going to fit in there or not, that's really pretty true. And then there are places you kind of get a mediocre feeling about. And then there are places you're like, okay, this is great. I love this. And so I took notes the entire week about every house that I visited. I wrote down who I talked to, what briefly what we talked about, how I felt after the conversation. That's really one thing you want to know, how you felt after the conversation. And so that's super important, because then when you go back after visiting 12 houses, you would think that you'll remember. At the end of day 1, you'll probably remember all 6, but by the end of day 12, the first day gets a little fuzzy. And so write down how you felt after the conversation. And my advice to you is be confident in who you are. That's my first tip. Girls will love you because you're grounded and you love yourself. And I don't mean love yourself like, oh my gosh, I love myself, but like, you are just confident in who you are, and you're willing to say what you think and what you feel, and like you're not afraid of what people think of you, and you don't have to be defined by what those girls think of you. And so when you go in feeling confident in that and knowing that your identity isn't in the letters that you get at the end of the week, I promise you, you will be loved and accepted and wanted by so many girls, because you aren't you aren't fazed by things that can go on. And so, and I promise you, the process will be a lot easier if you tell yourself that you're confident in who you are and this is not where your identity stems from. And so, my number one thing is be confident in who you are, and do not let the letters that you end up with or you think you're going to end up with define who you are, because they don't. And it will disappoint you, they will fail you, and you'll end up lost and more confused than you were when you started the whole entire process. So that's my first tip of advice. My second tip of advice, as you get to smaller and smaller houses, you start with 12, and then you go to 9, and then you go to 6, and then you go to 3. That's the process for A&M. I assume it's like that for every other place, but I'm not sure. But as you get to smaller and smaller houses, in the introduction process is over, be vulnerable and put yourself out there. My mom kind of described it like the Bachelorette and the Bachelor. You have to put yourself out there to even have the possibility of being in the group. You have to say, this is my story, this is who I am, this is why I'm doing this, and just be like willing to get to know people. You're spending like 15 to 35 minutes with these girls, and so how can you really get to know them unless you're vulnerable and you're like, hey, this is who I am, like, love me, take me, whatever, you know? And so that's kind of the mentality that I went in with, is I was like, I have nothing to lose. I can share with these girls, and the girls that I feel comfortable with, and like I know that in the end that will be a great what's the word I'm looking for? You'll stand out more because you shared who you were and you didn't have a bunch of walls up when you came in the house. So by being honest with your story and sharing and saying, this is where I struggle, but I'm here because, insert your reason, I think is really a valuable asset, and a valuable asset to yourself when you're going through the process. And like I said before, go in with a really open mind. It's super easy to get wrapped up in the whole process. And so my advice to you is be a light, because it's so easy for that week and that process to be very superficial. And so my advice to you is be a light in that dark, dark place, because so many girls come and they want so badly to be loved and accepted and wanted. And so remind them that their identity does not stem from the letters that they get. And so that is my biggest tip of advice to you, is just, I don't know what your faith is or your background is, but really focus on that and remind yourself that whatever you believe and whatever you feel, that your identity stems from that and who you are, and not what you get at the end of the week. Because I promise you, you'll be 100% disappointed. And maybe by the end of the week, you end up with houses that you don't want, and that's okay. The process isn't for everyone, but I think it's a great learning opportunity, and it's such a great opportunity to be a light and be like, hey, this is who I am. And you can build and make relationships through the process and not even end up rushing. And so that's really my advice to you. Let your stereotypes down of sororities, and be open and vulnerable. Don't let your letters define you. Go with an open mind and be confident in who you are. You're incredible, you're beautiful. That's what Bloomability is about, and I want to empower you to be able to do anything that you want to do. And so if my video can inspire you to go through this process and know that you're fearfully and wonderfully made and that you can do anything, even if it's not this process, then that's awesome. And so I just want to encourage you that if you feel like maybe I should try it, do it. You have nothing to lose. You will gain friendships, I can promise you that. My neighbor was actually in the process, and we didn't learn that till partway through, and now we're like becoming really good friends. And I'm so excited, and like even if I hadn't rushed a house, I still had that friendship and some other girls that I developed friendships with. And so it's a great way to connect with girls and women, and you'll find that certain houses have the same ideas that you do about what you want in a group. And so actually that reminds me of one other thing I wanted to say. I went in to the process on the first day. I wrote down the qualities that I wanted in the house that I would hope to end up in. Like, I didn't put a name on the house that I wanted, but I wrote down the qualities that I wanted in a house. And so as I would go in, I would ask girls, what do you want in the potential new members, is what they call them, PNMs. What do you want in PNMs for this upcoming year? And they would tell me, and then I would say, okay, well, what words would you use to describe your sorority? And then they would tell me. And a lot of my words ended up coming back up in conversations, and I didn't even bring up the words that I wanted until after, and I said, okay, well, this is what I'm looking for. And so as you start to have these great conversations with girls, you're able to like match up, and slowly it dwindles down. And so at the beginning of the week, you can't even imagine ending up with one house that sticks out to you, but I can promise you that you're gonna feel led in a certain direction. And my week was incredible. It was exhausting, but it was so cool, and the Lord just weaved it beautifully. And by the end of the week, Tri Delta was just like, this is where you need to be. That's what I felt like the Lord was saying to me. This is where you need to be. And so, so I pledged Tri Delta, and I'm so excited about my year, and I'm so excited about everything that's ahead. And I hope that this video was an encouragement to you, and that through this process you'll have courage to go through it and maybe give it a shot. You never know what might happen. I honestly never thought I would be doing a video on the recruitment process, but here I am. God has a sense of humor. So I am super excited about the year, and I hope that you've been encouraged and inspired. Have an awesome rest of your day.